everybody, I am Attila Tanner. Welcome to a brand new video of Next Talk. I hope you're all doing well. Happy New Year to you, and I wish you a healthy year and of course a good stock performance here as well. So since this is the first video of the year, we're gonna look back at the year that was. We know it wasn't a good year, but how bad was it? So we're gonna look at the different indexes, how they performed, and we're gonna look at our first pick from last year at this time, and also the picks we had from midpoint of the year. So let's get going. We're gonna start with the indexes. We'll start with the Dow Jones index. They were down minus 9.4% for the year, but they were up 19% the year before. From the midpoint of from July on, Dow Jones actually was up 15%. S&P 500, they were down minus 20% for the full year, but should be compared to the year before, they were up 27%. And from the midpoint of the year, S&P 500 actually was up 7.1%. Nasdaq had a bad year, minus 34%. And the year before, they were actually up 21%. Doesn't really cover up the losses, but still. After the 6 months, also Nasdaq was down minus 1%. The Canadian index TSX, they were down minus 8.7%. The year before, TSX was up 22%. From the midpoint of the year, TSX actually was up 5.1%. So what does this give us? They give us that it was a bad year all over, and all over the indexes, but after the midpoint of the year, things has turned towards the better. Now we're going to look at the different categories we had. So like the value stock, we're going to start with them. JP Morgan was one of the picks, minus 13% for the full year, but after the midpoint of the year, they were actually up 21%. Bank of America was a minus 24% for the full year. They were replaced by Meta, but Meta didn't do much better after mid-year. They were down minus 25%. Pfizer was down minus 10% for the full year, but after the 6 months, they were only down minus 0.7%. Canadian value stocks, Royalbank was down minus 1.5% for the full year, but they were up 4.2% after midpoint of the year. TD Bank was down minus 5.9% for the full year, but after the midpoint of the year, they were up 6%. Bank of Nova Scotia had a bad year all over, minus 21% for the full year and minus 10% from the midpoint. So in general, value stocks didn't do well, but all the indexes didn't do well either. So some of them did a little bit better than the indexes in general, but overall, there is declines. When it comes to dividend, it's a little bit more interesting. PetroChina and China Petroleum and Chemical Corporation, who was in the picks, are no longer in the picks because they are delisted, so we can't get a reading for them. However, AT&T was the first pick, but they were good, 6.4% up for the full year, including the dividend they are paying out. AT&T was replaced by Total Energies after the midpoint, and Total Energies was up 23%. When it comes to the Canadian dividends, Enbridge had a good year with 14% all in all up. After the midpoint of the year, they were up 0.5%. Pembina Pipeline had a good year as well, plus 26% for the full year. They were replaced by Tourmaline Oil, who also went up 9.1%. TC Energy was down 2.1% for the full year. They were replaced by Keyera, who was up 3.9% from the midpoint of the year. So dividend actually did well in the overall compared to how the other markets did. So I mean, that kind of teaches us in bad times, it's not too bad to go to dividend stocks. Growth stocks, on the other hand, is a place to avoid when it's turmoil, because what happened is that many people wanted to avoid companies who were losing money, so they pulled their money from those places and maybe they moved them to dividend stocks, whatever could be. But what happened is the following: Moderna was down minus 29%. After the midpoint, we replaced them with Lyft, and they were down with minus 17% as well. Vroom was very bad, minus 90% for the full year, and after the 6 months, they were still down minus 18%. C3AI also had a bad year with minus 64%. They were replaced by Uber midpoint of the year, who was actually up 21%. In Canada, Lightspeed was down -62%. They were replaced by Curaleaf, who were also down, but only -10%. Air Canada was down -8.2% for the full year, but after the midpoint of the year, they were actually up 21%. Algonquin Power and Utilities was down -47% for the full year. They were replaced by TFI International, who actually was up 32%. So as you can see, there was a lot of full years were bad, but after the midpoint, there was some improvements. Some changes I did for the growth formulas is also to look into the momentum of the stocks, which was an important change that we introduced. Momentum is basically looking at if a stock is keep going down, we are changing our measuring points from following that momentum. And I think that has helped a little bit on picking a better type of growth stocks. We could further improve the growth formulas in the sense that if we excluded all companies who actually are losing money, then we can get a different type of growth list. However, at the same time, growth companies are maybe supposed to lose a little bit money until they can become profitable. So maybe it's a contradicting idea. But anyways, it's a thought, but I haven't implemented that yet. All right. When we look at the pricey ones, so this is companies we suspected was too expensive. So here Ford was a pick, and yes, they were expensive. They were down 42%. GM was also expensive, so they were down 42%. And Wells Fargo was another pick, and they were down also -12%. So all of them was correct. Now, at midpoint, they were all changed. Snowflake came in, but Snowflake still went up 3.2% for the 6 months. Datadog went down as predicted, -23%, and CrowdStrike went down -38% as predicted. When it comes to the Canadian pricey ones, Cameco was actually up 12% against the plan. Shaw was up 4.7% because I guess the upcoming merger with Rogers, and Loblaw was up 17%. At midpoint, these companies were replaced by Onyx, who was up 1.9%. Turquoise Hill Resources, which was pricey, was actually acquired by Rio Tinto, and that explains maybe why they were pricey. Franco Nevada was also going 9.5% up against our thinking, since they were pricey and became more pricey. All right, that was the year that was and the predictions. And now we're going to look into the first picks for this year. And we're going to start with the US market and the value stocks. And we're going to compare them again 6 months from now and also 1 year from now. So ExxonMobil is number 1. Taiwan Semiconductor is number 2, and JP Morgan is number 3. Here we're looking at high market cap companies with low priced earnings. So in a way, it's not much of a pick. It's more just of seeing who has the highest market cap and who has the low priced earnings. Same thing with the dividends is we're looking at companies who are paying the dividends comparing to their stock price. So Verizon is number 1. They moved up 1 spot. Conoco Phillips moves also up 1 spot to spot number 2. And AT&T drops down to spot number 3 from top spot. The growth stocks in the US market, Xpeng is number 1. NIO is number 2. And Asana is a newcomer in spot number 3. Asana had a 41% year-over-year sales growth, while the stock price had declined 85%. Here we're basically looking at sales growth year-over-year, comparing it with the stock price growth. We balance it with the price to sale ratio for the companies, and we put them into lists. So those are the most attractive ones. The ones at the bottom of that list is considered pricey. And here we have Blackstone as spot number 1. Vroom is still there. It's spot number 2 is pricey. And Snowflake is spot number 3. They are down 1 spot, switching places with Vroom, basically. Snowflake has a very high price to sale ratio, and that's the reason they are in the pricey list. All right, that concludes the US. Let's dive into the Canadian market and value stocks there. Royalbank is number 1, TD Bank is number 2, and Bank of Montreal is number 3. Dividends in the Canadian market, Tourmaline Oil is number 1, Keyera is number 2, and Enbridge is number 3. Growth stocks in the Canadian market, Air Canada is number 1, Algonquin Power and Utilities is number 2, and Nuvei is number 3. Pricey ones in the Canadian market, Onyx is number 1, Franco Nevada is number 2, and Wheaton Precious Metals is number 3. Alright, this concludes the first report for the year. Thank you so much for watching. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe so you don't miss out when the next one comes. You can also follow us on Twitter, NextStockYT. Whenever there is new reports coming in, I will tweet about it. Most reports are gonna start soon because Q4 is ended, and we are expecting a lot of companies to starting to report as of next video, which I hope to be in 2 weeks' time. All right, Happy New Year to everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.